Hari Om friends, welcome to the first part of the series on the Battle of Raichur. This will probably be a 4 to 5 part series and is based on a blog article I wrote many years back. This video is a more updated version of that article as I've used an additional source this time round. So before we start off as usual, let us pray to Goddess Saraswati to take us from darkness to light and from ignorance to knowledge. Saraswati Namastubhyam Varade Kamarupini Vidyarambham Karishyami Siddhir Bhavatu Me Sada. And I would also like to remember my dear mother Professor Surandavai Shastri, who was a fountainhead of knowledge and is responsible for my innate curiosity regarding our itihasa and sanskruti. So before we kind of hop into the details of the Raichur War and why it happened and what were its consequences and how the different factions, kind of fought in the war, let's have a look at the key factors and the actors who were responsible for the Raichur War. So let's see what the scene was in the early decade of the 16th century, around 1520 CE. So this map is a rough approximation of the boundaries and not very accurate, as I had created this around 11 years back. So if you look at the map carefully, you can see that most of southern India and a large part of Orissa, present Orissa, was under Hindu powers and very strong powers. So one was the Karnataka Samrajya, or what is more popularly known as the Vijayanagara Empire. Then you had the powerful Gajapatis of Orissa, who were again ferocious defenders of Dharma. And finally, you had Calicut, that is Kerala, which was under the Samudripads or the Zamorins. And these were again staunch Hindu rulers, and they were a maritime power as well. So they dominated the spice trade from India or along the sea route up to Egypt and so on. And if you look around the part where you got Maharashtra and Telangana, and you can see these different names. So you got Bijapur, Ahmednagar, Berar, Bidar, Golconda. So all of these were Muslim sultanates. Now before 1500s, this whole part was under the Bahmani sultans and it was known as the Bahmani Sultanate. But as time went on, it split up into 5 different parts and 5 different competing sultans. Hey, just give me a minute, I've got a little bit of a cold. And there's one more thing I would like to add. So when we talk about Pakistan and Bangladesh now, we tend to look at them basically as, kind of democratic countries with a very strong Islamic aspect. But the correct way of looking at them is really Islamic sultanates with a somewhat democratic aspect. Once you see this, you realize why both armies, the Pakistani and the Bangladeshi army, have a very kind of a rabid anti-Hindu outlook, and even society in general. So Hindus are persecuted, raped, murdered in both the Islamic countries because they are fundamentally Islamic sultanates. So if tomorrow somebody declares himself the Sultan of Bengal or the Sultan of Pakistan or whatever's left of it, it shouldn't really come as a surprise because the army will straight away shift its allegiance to whoever declares himself the Sultan. Okay, so the laser pointer is still on. So let's have a look at the constituent, like I said, the actors. So first we'll have a look at the Karnataka Samrajya. So Karnataka Samrajya, more popularly known as the Vijayanagara Empire, was supposedly founded in 1346 CE of the Common Era. But in my opinion, it is much older. This is also linked to a wider issue of problems in the Hindu chronology, not in the Hindu chronology, but in the British chronology, which they imposed on the Hindus and which is still continuing today. And this has skewed up the dating of our dynasties as well. So I will create a separate video where I discuss the alternate viewpoints because they are quite important for us to understand. This empire was a natural successor to the Hoysala kingdom of Karnataka, and the founding is traditionally attributed to 5 brothers of the Sangama line. So they are called the Sangama brothers: Harihar Rai, Bukkar Rai, Kampana, Muddappa, and Marappa. And these are also all the brothers were governors of different parts of the Hoysala Empire. So of these, Harihar Rai and Bukkar Rai became the first and the second emperors of Vijayanagar respectively. So like as mentioned, this empire along with the Gajapatis and the Zamorins of Calicut protected Hindu Dharma in approximately 30 to 40% of present day Bharat. Now Vijayanagar also went through different dynasties. So the Sangama dynasties ruled for a time, and in 1490s a new line had supplanted the existing rulers of the Vijayanagara Empire. They were the Tuluvas, and the most famous of whom is Kannada Raja Ramaramana, Shri Krishnadevaraya. So Kannada Raja Ramaramana is one of the titles he earned due to his valor, and he was a great emperor basically. So another note, I kind of keep digressing, but it's important to understand this. When we refer to our great kings and emperors who were defenders of Dharma, try and refer to them by their titles. So Shivaji Maharaj, we won't call Shivaji, we would say Chhatrapati Shivaji or Shivaji Maharaj. It's a mark of respect. So, like Maharana Hamir Dev Chauhan, the ruler of Ranthambore, we will call him Maharana Hamir Dev Chauhan. It's a mark of respect, and we should have that minimum respect, to these great people. Now we will look at Krishnadevaraya's achievements in more detail in the next installment of the series. But let's first have a look at the friendly neighborhood jihadis, because we have been grappling with one version or the other for the last 1200 years. So the first one to separate from the Bahmani Sultanate was the Nizam Shahi Sultanate, and this was based, let's get the laser pointer on, in Ahmednagar, which is a part of Maharashtra and bordering on Gujarat. So they shared a border with the Gujarat Sultanate as well, and they had their capital Ahmednagar. Uh, Malik Ahmed was the Bahmani governor of a city called Junnar in Maharashtra. And by 1490, the Bahmani Sultan was already kind of tottering. So he declared independence, and the Bahmani Sultan still had that much power to send armies to kind of subdue him. But he defeated all of them, especially one of them was a night attack. And he attacked the Bahmani army in the night and defeated them. And he declared himself as the Nizamul Mulk Hasan Bahari. So he became the independent ruler of Ahmednagar Sultanate. Now, Malik Ahmad Nizam Shah, the first ruler of Nizam Shahi Sultanate, was the son of Malik Hasan Bahri. Okay, so I kind of got the names wrong. Sorry for that. So Malik Hasan Bahri was a first generation Hindu convert to Islam. He was captured on one of the raids that the Bahmani Sultanate did on the Vijayanagara Empire, and he was converted to Islam. So Malik Ahmad Nizam Shah was the second generation, and typically these were as jihadi or more jihadi than the what we can call the original Muslims. Okay, so let's have a look at the next one, which was the second to separate, which was the Imad Shahi. So Imad Shahi is in a region called Berar. So present day in Maharashtra it's called Varhad or Vidarbha, and their capital initially was at Gavilgad. So Gavilgad is located on a hill station. It's a hill fort. The hill station is called Chikaldhara. It's a very picturesque place. At the bottom of the hills is a very old town called Paratwada, and this is a very strategic location. So he also declared independence in 1490. He followed Nizam ul Mulk's lead. So it's quite possible that they had this understanding as well. And later on, his capital was at Achalpur. It's known as Ilichpur in the old British records. So Achalpur is an interesting place because it's very historical as well. So this was the first, major center or major junction after you crossed the Vindhyas into Maharashtra. And all the invading armies, right from the Khilji times, had used it when attacking Maharashtra. So Achalpur has got around 40% Muslim population as per the 2011 census. In today's date, it's probably around 50%, and it sees frequent riots as well. And an interesting aside, I heard from a coin collector when I was in Akola that antique coin hoards, so right from the ancient times to the Sultanate times and Mughal times and Maratha times. So these hoards or pots filled with coins, which were hidden underground for security, are frequently found in that place. So if you're a coin collector, it might be worth heading to Achalpur and getting in touch with one of the the metal merchants there. Okay, coming back to Imadul Mulk, he was a first generation convert. So like Hassan Bari, he had been captured in one of the jihads against Vijayanagar by the Bahmanis, and he had been converted to Islam, and he very quickly rose, in the hierarchy. Now, the Imad Shahi was the most short-lived of all these five sultanates. So what happened was in the Battle of Talikota in 1565, Imad Shah suffered massive losses of his army and resources. So by 1568, he was in a considerably weakened state, and he was swallowed up by the then Nizam Shah of Ahmednagar. Okay, let's move on to the next one, which is the Adil Shahi or the Bijapur Sultanate. So you can see the Bijapur Sultanate at its peak. It included obviously a large part of Maharashtra and coastal Maharashtra as well. So they had access to the ports before the Portuguese kind of captured Goa. So Adil Shah or the Adil Shahi came into existence around the 1510s. This was when the formal separation from the Bahmani kingdom was announced by Yusuf Adil Khan. So the Shah title they took later on. Now, just to give a little bit of background, Deccan had become a magnet for adventurers and freebooters from Persia, Turkey, Central Asia. Uh, Depending on whom you believe, so Yusuf was either a Georgian slave or from Iran. Now, in later years, a tale was made up where he became son of one of the Ottoman emperors because all these Ashraf or the elite, Muslim elite, want to show that they are originally from somewhere else. They are not Hindu converts. Now, Yusuf was eventually killed by Krishnadevaraya in 1510 when he participated in a jihad against the Vijayanagara Empire launched by the Bahmani Sultan. So, just coming back to the point on Muslims being in awe of their pure co-religionists, this happens today and this has happened throughout history. So, what happened was, or even happens today, is any two-bit character who could say he was descended directly from the Prophet or he was from this family or that family in Arabia and Turkey was automatically elevated to a much superior position compared to the new converts, new Muslim converts. This was the same in the Deccan, and this led to massive fights, sometimes outright massacres, between the Deccani faction, who were converted Muslims, and the you could say the purer Muslims from other parts of the world. So, like Christianity, Islam is an extremely racially segregated religion, despite the much flaunted doctrine of equality and brotherhood. So, all the Semitic religions are racially segregated. Even Judaism. So, just a little bit of history. So, Beni Israel, if you know about it, were Jews who had settled on the coast of Maharashtra around 2000 years back. So, when Israel was founded in 1947, 49, I don't remember the date, but they migrated to Israel and they faced a lot of discrimination because the Jews who had migrated from Europe were obviously had the white kind of superiority complex, and the Jews from India, they were pretty much Maharashtrians really. Their color, skin color, everything, they were Maharashtrians except that they were Jews. So they were racially discriminated against. So that's there. So let's have a look at the Qutb Shahs. So again, like the Adil Shahs, the Qutb Shah was founded by Iranian adventurer who had initially come to Delhi with his relations to seek his luck there. But remember, by this time, Delhi was crowded with jihadis from all over the world, and it was saturated. It was no longer the power of 14th century. So it was in a state of decay. So obviously they wouldn't get the importance or the perks there. So they migrated to the Deccan, and this chap was called Kuli Khavas Khan Hamdani. So Hamdan is the province in Iran where he came from. Now he came to Deccan to participate in the jihad, and he again quickly rose up in the hierarchy. He was given Golconda, and then he separated. So the Qutb Shahs were again all jihadis for most of the 90-year period. They imposed Persian. So this is again, language imperialism. So that is just one part of the overall Islamic imperialism or even British imperialism, where they imposed English on everybody. And it was only Tana Shah, who the last Qutb Shah, who was a little bit more tolerant, and he made Telugu the de facto language because 90% of the population was Hindu. Same thing happened in the Nizam of Hyderabad's time. 90% population was Hindu, 10% was Muslim, and they imposed their language and everything else on the Hindus. So once Tana Shah kind of made Telugu de facto, he also promoted a lot of Hindus in the administration. This led to the Muslim faction growing jealous and angry, and they invited Aurangzeb, and they also betrayed Qutb Shah. So let's have a look at the last one, which is Barid Shahi. So the Barid Shah uh, was again founded by Qasim Barid in 1492. So Barid Shahs are interesting because they did not proclaim themselves to be independent straight off the bat. So they kept the Bahmani sultans as their puppets for quite some time. And finally, when they felt strong enough, they declared themselves as sultans. But they still, for quite some, they kept the charade going, that the Bahmani sultans. But they were just puppets in their hands. And Qasim Barid started his career as a Sar Naubat, and he was made Kotwal of Bidar by Nizam Mulk Bahri. Remember, Nizam Mulk was the father of the first Ahmednagar Sultan. So what he had done was he had helped Nizam Mulk in carrying out a big massacre of the foreign Muslims in Bidar. Okay, because I remember there's always fighting going on. So later on he became the Mir Jumla, or the Prime Minister of the Bahmani Sultanate. And then he became the de facto ruler. So all these five Muslim sultanates, they used to fight against each other. There were jealousies and plots and all that kind of stuff. So all of these used to go on. And then we come to the Europeans, the Caucasian interlopers. So by the early 1500s, the Portuguese were actively trying to gain control over the spice trade and the lucrative horse trade, which was dominated by the Arabs. To gain control over this, they had to first neutralize the Samutripad, or the Zamorin of Calicut. So they attacked Calicut, but they were beaten back with heavy loss. And what they did was, typically they started targeting, merchant ships and fishing boats which were defenseless, and they committed all the usual European brutalities. So massacre, cut off their hands, legs, and all of that, all of the stuff that they do. So the Zamorin formed a confederation with his Mamluk allies from Egypt, the Ottoman Devi, and the Sultans of Gujarat, who also had a powerful Devi. So this confederation fought with the Portuguese in 1508, and they defeated the Portuguese. But in 1509, the Portuguese came back with a stronger fleet, and this confederation was defeated. 1510, the Portuguese took Goa. So not the present state of Goa, but a little part, which is the old city of Goa. And there's a very strong possibility that this was facilitated by Krishnadevaraya or the Vijayanagar camp, because they saw them as an irritant to the Bijapur Sultanate, which was in possession of Goa at this point of time. So Goa was captured by the Delhi Sultanate in during Muhammad Tughlaq's raids in the 1330s. But the Vijayanagara Empire took it back in the 1370s, and it remained till 1417 in Vijayanagar hands, when Muhammad Gawan, the prime minister of the Bahmani Sultanate, attacked Goa and he captured it for the Bahmanis. But obviously, once the Bahmani Empire disintegrated, it automatically went into the Bijapur hands. So by 1520, the little bit of mainland Goa was in Portuguese hands, and the governor was Dom Duarte de Menzies. So this was, and the Portuguese played a little role in the Raichur War, which is why I'm mentioning them here. Now, whether that role is exaggerated or whether they really did what is claimed that they did, we'll discuss more when we come to the description of the war. Okay, so that's pretty much it for this time. And in the next video, we will have a look at the achievements and the greatness of Samrat Krishnadevaraya. In the aftermath of the battle, I'll also discuss some of what I see are the limitations. Okay, so that this is not kind of removed from the greatness. Uh, like all rulers, nobody is perfect. But we'll discuss that, in the last video of the series. So friends, if you have liked this video, please remember to like, share and subscribe, and I will see you next time. Thank you.